I'm Josh.
And I'm Stacy Leigh. We're missionaries in Malawi with Gospel Life Global Missions.
And this is the Gospel Life Podcast, where we talk about missions, Malawi, and more. Welcome to the Gospel Life Podcast, our first episode since going to furlough. Our last episode was just a few days before we left.
That's right. We've been AWOL on this podcast for almost a year.
Yeah, so usually you can tell how well things are going by how often we're podcasting.
That's very true.
Yeah, so if it's coming out every month, then that means that things are going really well. And if it's not coming out, then you can assume that things have been kind of hard and
crazy.
And crazy. We had planned to do podcasts while we were on furlough, but that did not happen.
Nope.
And that's okay. But here we are with a fresh start. Today's episode is going to be a really brief update about Cyclone Freddy. And then maybe next week, if we have time, we'll start back at our normal pace of recording episodes and talk about our furlough and our experience coming back to Malawi since then. But right now, we have a major issue in ministry and in life here in Malawi. So Cyclone Freddy, if people have not heard about Cyclone Freddy and what's happening, where do you start?
So 2 weekends ago now, a cyclone hit Malawi and central Mozambique. And it just kind of danced over southern Malawi for 3 or 4 days. Yeah. It didn't seem like it was going to be that bad. And then it just stayed and stayed and stayed. And it ended up causing quite possibly one of the biggest humanitarian disasters that Malawi's seen.
Yeah. So the storm in itself, I know meteorologists were, beside the damage, if you're in meteorology, you were kind of geeking out about this storm because it was becoming the world record holder of the longest storm of this type, cyclone, hurricane, because it started all the way beside Australia, went across the Indian Ocean, hit Madagascar, hit southern Mozambique, and typically a cyclone then goes inland, just like a hurricane would in Florida.
Cyclone's just another word for hurricane. Yeah, same storm.
It goes inland, it breaks up, brings a lot of rain, but then disintegrates. But this one decided to go in reverse, go back into the Indian Ocean, hit Madagascar again, pick up strength, and then came to the more central area of Mozambique where the Zambezi River comes out and basically travel up the Zambezi Valley, up the Shiri Valley to Malawi. And then if you look at the pathway of this storm on any radar storm tracker, it just zigzagged right across southern Malawi for about a week. Just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Yeah, and so one of the most devastated areas was Blantyre City. And a lot of that is because Blantyre has a lot of hills and mountains around the city, and they've all been heavily deforested for firewood. Yeah. And so there are no trees left to hold the soil and the rain in place. And it caused huge mudslides and just rivers of water flowing down, and it took out entire communities.
Yeah.
And then in the flatter areas up here around Zomba, not in Zomba City where we are, Zomba City actually fared really well, and I do think it's because we have so many mature trees. But out in Zomba District, just incredible flooding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, early on, we were comparing it to the other two major cyclones we've experienced during our time in Malawi. So I think it was in 2019, we had Cyclone Idai. I still don't know if I pronounced that right.
Yeah.
And then last year we had Cyclone Ana, and both of those cyclones were fairly intense when they hit Malawi. And they brought a lot of rain, a lot of wind right up front. With Cyclone Freddy, he came and he lost a lot of strength as he came to Malawi, which...
Yeah, it didn't look like it was going to be bad at all.
Yeah, so we thought, okay, we have really escaped on this one. It's going to be bad in some areas, but it's not going to be like what we've seen in other instances. But the difference was that Cyclone Freddy just stuck around and stuck around and stuck around. And the longer it stayed, the more the damage just started to pile up and pile up and pile up, until the point that this is the worst of the 3 cyclones we've experienced. And most people are saying in terms of history, it's one of the worst as well.
Yeah, and I was just looking up, it's really hard for them to get hard numbers about the number of people affected, even the number of people who have died, because so many places are just completely unreachable. But they're estimating that more than 350,000 people in Malawi have been displaced. They've closed schools. They had 2 weeks left in school before a 2-week kind of spring break. And they've closed schools so that all the government schools are being used as like refugee camps.
Yeah, evacuation camps.
Evacuation camps, that's the word. Keeping people, but they're having a hard time feeding people, and they don't know where the people are going to go because they don't have homes anymore. They don't have, some whole villages are gone. Yeah,
and to top it all off, this week we've had some sunshine, but we've also had major rains. It's still rainy season. And for example, this morning I was supposed to go out with Isaac, our colleague Isaac, and we were going to go visit some of the affected pastors. But then this morning we just had a downpour, and we weren't able to go. And so you just think of people who have lost their homes and who are living in temporary shelters, and then you still have these downpours coming.
And the last I heard, I can't remember an exact number, and I know they don't have an exact number, but it was several hundred people who have died. And I saw that
the BBC reported yesterday, I think 450 people that have been confirmed dead.
Yeah, but I also saw they were reporting that, in a lot of places, people are burying their dead so quickly and not reporting it, that number's probably a lot higher.
Yeah, I mean, there are bodies still buried under landslides, under buildings. And then additionally, in rural areas, they're not necessarily reporting this to the authorities. They're just, burying
taking
people.
Taking care of business.
Yeah. So it could be realistically in the thousands of number of people who died during the storm. And then if there is, consequences to people being displaced, people living in, mass shelters, with the diseases and infections and waterborne diseases that could arise from all of this, you could see.
Cholera has been a huge issue in Malawi over the last several months, and was just starting to get better.
Yeah.
But they're predicting that with all of this extra water, that's probably going to get worse again.
Yeah, and cholera was primarily a problem in the 2 major cities, Lilongwe and Blantyre.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was due to bad sewage systems and people being exposed to sewage in the flooded streets and that kind of thing. But, it's kind of a wait and see to see if that will then spread further out and become more prevalent in all of these flooded areas. The good thing is that there has been an immense response internationally and by aid organizations and locally by aid organizations that specialize in this kind of thing. So the Malawian government is doing its very best and is getting donations from the U.S. and the EU and even from other African nations such as Zambia and Mozambique and Tanzania. So it's really, a lot of people are doing a lot of great things. The Red Cross, the UN are really stepping in. I mean, these are the things that they are, this type of emergency management, first responder situation. These are the things that they are equipped and trained to do and respond to. And they're really doing a great job in the circumstances. I mean, you could always point to, well, there's this problem or there's that problem. But in these circumstances, it seems like they're doing a really good job. So we have asked people to give to Gospel Life for disaster relief. We're still not sure what that's going to look like, but we do know that what makes us different from those first responder organizations is that we have a long-term relationship with the pastors and the churches we partner with. And so we can do things that those organizations will never envision doing because of that long-term relationship. And we know that this is not a situation that gets fixed in a few weeks. It's something that will last for months and months, if not years. So what's your plan for
how to determine the needs and what we're going to do?
Yeah, well, that's the thing that drives me crazy, because it's hard to make a plan at this point. I mean, It's so soon, and we're not equipped to be first responders. So we can't, the things that we could try to go out and do right now that would help people, we would actually be in the way, because we don't have, as an organization, we don't have the capacity or the training to really help. So it's very difficult to kind of sit back and let the people who have that capacity do their job first. But I think it's very important to really be honest about what we can do and what we can't do. And like I said, our great asset is our long-term relationship with people. So as we are able to get out and talk to people firsthand, see things firsthand, really assess the situation in a more detailed manner and realize, okay, these are the hardest hit, people over here versus over here, then I really hope that the Holy Spirit is the one who's going to lead us. He's the one who wants us and commands us to love our brothers and sisters in Christ. And I'm just trusting right now that as we walk by the Spirit is the one that's going to direct us in how to do these things.
Yeah, and if you'd like to be a part of that, you can get on our website, gospellife.org, and there's Give button, right? And now on the Give button, there is a disaster relief option when you give online, right? Thanks for listening. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Gospel Life Go.
God provides for the needs of Gospel Life through your prayers and gifts. To become a prayer or giving partner, go to gospellife.org.
We hope you join us in glorifying God by growing disciples who make disciples. We hope that you live a gospel life.